Tertiary education in Nigeria is a critical phase that equips students with the knowledge and skills needed for specialized careers. While Nigeria boasts several world-class universities, there are concerns about the overall quality of tertiary education in the country. Issues like outdated curriculum, lack of qualified faculty, and inadequate facilities affect the quality of education provided. Access to tertiary education in Nigeria remains a challenge, with limited spaces available in universities and polytechnics. Tertiary education in Nigeria plays a crucial role in shaping the country's future and equipping its workforce with the skills needed for various sectors. While there are notable universities, polytechnics, and colleges in the country, there are persistent challenges related to quality, access, funding, and research. Addressing these challenges is essential to ensure that Nigerian tertiary education continues to be a source of knowledge, innovation, and growth, providing opportunities for students to excel and contribute to the nation's development. And to have this discussion, we have Special Advisor, Student Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Enugu State, to talk about the challenges students in Nigeria tertiary institutions face. And we have Honorable Divine EKWEREMADU. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just as our subject matter says today, challenges that students in Nigerian institutions face, what would you say are some of the challenges, key challenges that they really face in the country today?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I feel like this particular issue is not being talked about enough. Because, like you said, JAMB is having issues, WAEC, and people are struggling really to get into tertiary institution. This is the university that there's already rumors that is a scam. People already saying education
the school is a scam.
The school is scam. So when you think about the fact that the business or the infrastructure called education is failing the students, then it means that it needs to be talked about. Some of these challenges, I would like to go with the most, current ones. A lot of universities are facing increment, in school fees, and this is a challenge in 3 levels. When you treat the university education as a business, which is what it is, you find out that the customers are the stakeholders, are the students. And I believe that when increments like that want to be made or should be made, then there should be some level of communication with the stakeholders. Let's say you don't want to have a conversation with the students before you make an increase. They have guardians. When you go outside the country, what you find is that when these kind of major increases are done, there's a sort of conversation and communication. You don't wake up in the morning
to see that your school fees has been increased
all of a sudden. And we are not talking about increases of 5%. We're not talking about increases of 10%. We are saying if development fee was 50,000, it's now 100,000. And so when someone struggles to get 50,000, remember,
it's not even the school fees. We're talking about the difference.
No, it's not just the school fees. It's not just the school fees. So there's an increase.
Across board.
Yeah, across board. So registration, and this is the problem. This is why students have an issue with that increase. Because if you're increasing my tuition, and then I don't have to pay any other fee, then that makes sense. But when there's a development levy, there is a course registration fee, there is a faculty due, all these things are payments and they are increasing alongside the tuition. One begins to wonder, what really are we paying for? At a point, some students said that their parents feel like they are being duped by the students, because when you tell your mother today that there's a payment of 10,000 and by next week there's a payment of 5,000, this is the person that has deposited 100,000 as your school fees. The person is now wondering. So these increases should be, they should be regulated. Now, also cause for increase, right? So we are in a community, and that community is Nigeria. We understand that things have not been very smooth with our economy and our currency, but in the last 5 months it's been a little bit of this on a range, right? So we've not had a major increase in the last 5 months. So if there was going to be a hike in any fee, I was expecting to see such hikes last year. So last year
when it was like we're at the peak of everything.
You understand? So the last year was unstable, but they could run universities across Nigeria, especially in Enugu State, could run academic sessions with the fees that were being paid as at last year. And then this year, where we even had a drop in the fuel price,
Things are like relative, exactly.
Now we are seeing that there is an increase all of a sudden. So one begins to wonder what is the cause. And then finally, the final level on which I would like to discuss this increment is the fact that if there is going to be an increase, and I walk into my faculty and notice that there are now new fans, right?
Another angle.
So they are now, the classroom is now painted. Then
so they increase these fees and still have no visible change in the environment.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. Governor Peter Simba has, relatively taken up the tasks and all of that. But you're seeing roads coming out in everywhere. You're seeing smart schools coming out.
Okay.
So as human beings, when you say pay this, oh no, raise your hand and pay more, what you want to see as a justification for what you have just paid is better facility, better infrastructure
than what you've had
better
before.
Quality. So I don't pay more and then get the same. I mean, if you walked into a restaurant and they said, just the same restaurant, not a different restaurant, they said, oh, for this is a special pack and there's a regular pack. So this rice is special pack is 5K, regular pack is 2K. So 5K comes with extra beef. You can't have regular pack and special pack having the same
5K
package,
at the same
right?
time.
So these are the problems. First off, it shouldn't be sudden. These things, because students are struggling. There are a lot of people who, like you have said, the schools cannot even contain all the students. I'm talking about accommodation. So, right, if the school can't contain all the students, it means there's a large percentage of students who have to spend on logistics daily to come to school. So if that person has that budget, fixed as what they are spending, and then you are adding these new fees, how do these people actually survive? So the suddenness of these fees is a problem. The fact that they are not properly discussed, and then we take these fees back to our parents and guardians. For those who have that, the ones who are taking care of themselves, they don't take back to anybody. Exactly. But for those who have parents and guardians, you take that back, and then your parents and guardians are aloof. They are unaware of what is going on. And of course, you're having these increases and there is no evidential, change in quality or improvement in quality, right? So this becomes a problem with the fees. The fees is like what we use to sustain the school, and we are the customers. The students should be treated as the stakeholders. They are not an aftermath.
I mean, there are no students. There is no students in this. If there are no students in a school,
exactly,
then there's no school. Exactly.
So there's no school without students. Remove the fact that students are so enthusiastic about going to school. So when you say you're going to close them down, oh, I don't want to try, I want to just graduate. Remove that fact. If there were no students, there wouldn't be a school. So they should be given attention, right? In recent times, this is by the way, in recent times, student leaders across universities have made, efforts, to confront schools who have,
I mean, is that not the essence of having the SUG in schools?
And so when you have that, yet you don't confront, you don't, have a conversation with them, you don't inform or involve them, and then they come out tomorrow seen as a reaction to your increase and probably a peaceful protest, a riot, a demonstration, and then they become an enemy of the institution. There's a lot of that, and it's causing a lot of problem within, so I don't want to dwell a lot on just the
financial
because there's a lot of other. So let's talk about curriculum. Like I said, when I started, I said people already believe that university is a scam, right? Because the average Nigerian, 90% of the people, the graduates that the school system is churning out are not going to function within their course description. I'll give you a very, very clear example. A person who is studying molecular biology and genetics is only going to be functional if there are, hundreds of labs that can actually hold these students and the skill that they have gained. Same thing with somebody who is studying physiology, anatomy, mathematics, statistics, and the rest of them.
Okay.
Now, if that exists, within the curriculum of what we are doing, and we know that the world is now changing, the world is globalizing. So what was relevant 10 years ago
is not relevant anymore.
Now. So if you have a knowledge about how to do, you're a mass communicator, or maybe you're doing pub admin, so you have a knowledge about how to write, how to do letters. Come on, there's AI now. So AI
you don't even need you to do all of that.
Yeah, so AI is doing the letters.
Apart from the curriculum itself, let's talk about some of the courses that we have in the Nigerian university now. You see people that apply for microbiology, anatomy, and the rest of, and then they give you admission just because they need you to be a student to get your money. They give you something like soil science. They give you like animal husbandry. I'm not saying those courses are not so relevant, but there are certain courses that I I see in the Nigerian university, and I'm wondering, what do they really do?
Where would they function, right? So if there was a soil science or an animal husbandry graduate abroad, we understand that they take the veterinary space very
seriously. Exactly.
So everybody that has a dog abroad is going to visit a veterinary medical doctor. But what we have in Nigeria, anybody can own a pet. When last did we hear that, oh, there was this outbreak of disease
and you got animals, your pet vaccinated or something?
So, except the ones doing poultry who does their business. So they just have to buy, and some of them do the vaccination themselves. They buy the vaccine. I had a poultry, so I know this. So you buy Gomboro or Lasota, I know the name. So you take it home and you vaccinate your poultry yourself. Right, so where would they function? If we had spaces for these people to function, then the courses make sense. So I feel like there needs to be an update. I mean, following the recent Enugu Tech Festival that happened, we realized that there's actually a lot of people, there's a tech gap, in Enugu State and Nigeria at large, and we need to come up to speed with what is happening outside the world. People in secondary school in China, Japan, they're already doing robotics. They are building drones in their secondary schools because it's hands-on. When I come out of here, what I have learned in this space should be able to fetch me a living. So if my curriculum is not helping, then what am I really doing in school? So the curriculum needs to be reviewed, which is a huge aspect of education. When you're reading about education, as a structure in a country, you find out that curriculum review is even meant to be annual.
Exactly. Things change every year.
Because things are changing every year. So how are you teaching someone with a textbook? I'm using a textbook now that my lecturer used. And my lecturer graduated in the 90s. So it busts your head. You're wondering, and then you read in that textbook, and the same lecturer tells you, take note of that thing in that book. Oh, we don't use that anymore.
So they are even aware of how outdated this information is. Of course.
So they just pass it down. But that's also aside. Let's come.
I mean, they are working with what they have. Wouldn't you say that?
The problem is what you have in terms of education. I feel like if we had more research institutes, which is another place that needs to be focused on, then they will have more. Because truthfully, they're working with what they have. So there's nobody who is going to take up their own resources to do a research and write another textbook following the recent trends. These things need to be supported. These things need to be funded. So we need more research labs coming up. We need more research institutes coming up so that more knowledge, more ideas can be fixed into what we have, as a curriculum. But the one that affects life, which I feel like it needs to be paid attention to, is security. Security in tertiary institutions is, I know that almost 60% of people who put, and these percentages I'm calling are not factual, right? So I'm just following, interactions with students. I realize that about 60% of people who go into private universities is strictly because of safety. Not necessarily because they have all the money to afford it, not because they don't want to send their children to federal universities.
But for the safety of their
But nobody wants to send their first child to school and hear that
they are dead.
It's crazy.
I mean, I know there was one time in Ebonyi State, I think it was Funai, that they said a student was found dead beside the river. I'm not sure how that story went. But the truth is, till now, I don't think I got any particular updates about it. And it keeps me worried. Is it that the school authorities really fold their arms towards situations like this? Don't they get to dig up information on how this thing happened and, the way forward, how to get hold of the people that perpetrated this incident?
There are universities today where if you take a footage of how their hostel looks and it doesn't look good, you become an enemy of the school. So, there's red herring, right? So people do not want negative publicity. People do not want negative popularity. So the school does not want to popularize on the media, especially because we know the power of the media. Schools don't want to popularize on the media because of a negative, aspect. So that's why a lot of times when you hear this thing on the media, because when people are now called, friends of the person who was there, okay, please, we need you to come in, talk about what you saw. What did you? No, I just want to graduate though.
Exactly.
No, I don't want trouble. Oh, no, I don't want problem. So free speech is a luxury because this person just wants to graduate. And it's not like there's anybody putting a gun to your head, but you just know it's an unwritten rule that you can't mention a crime or a problem that's happened in the institution.
Something that you possibly witnessed yourself.
Possibly, a lot of times students witness these things, but it ends as a gist in the room. Because if they come out, they don't know what will happen, right? So this is also a very, very huge area of concern. I believe that more advocacy should be drawn to that aspect. There should be some structures, some agencies even, if possible, where people can complain anonymously, where people can submit. I think something was happening in my own university, and we kind of wanted to come up with something like that, where students who have these kind of issues, molestation by lecturers, these things that you may not want to come out to talk about because of, backlash, stigma, consequences and the rest of them. There should be agencies that cater for these things. I believe that some of them exist, but they may not just be as effective as they should be. So if these people can come up to par with the current issues, then I believe that we could finally have a place where students, okay, so I can't graduate, I've been in school 2 years longer, and it's because of these particular incidents that happened.
Okay.
Please speak up for me.
Let's talk about school environments. I'm talking about the hostels that we have in the university these days. What would you have to say about the kind of hostels that you're a fresher, you just come into the new university, you can't start looking for a house, obvious reasons, because of how tight the schedule is. You have to do your registrations, and then you're faced with affording this accommodation that is, not so expensive. Hostels are not so expensive, so it's easier to stay there, other than looking for thousands of nairas that you used to pay for a lodge, as they call it. How would you rate the current state of hostels in the Nigerian university?
So how would I rate it? I'll give it a very poor rating. And not like I want to sound, there's a way I like to approach issues, that are like this. I feel like there's a general issue Nigeria faces with their infrastructure, and that is maintenance. Now, if you had pictures of what our parents went to or utilized during their school years, you find out that it's the same thing that we are using. So the question now is, across 40 years, what efforts of maintenance have been done? And when I say maintenance, is on both sides. It's largely on the school administration, but it's also on the students. The students,
honestly, right? Because they are not helping matters when it comes to this.
Like I said, if you come out today and say you want to change all the toilets in a certain hostel, you have no assurance whatsoever that it's going to stay like that for the next month. So what an administration would even, and this gives them excuses. This particular issue where students cannot maintain themselves is a lot of excuse. So every time you walk up to the school administration and say there's a dilapidated structure, they will tell you want us to churn in 10 million there so that people will mess it up again. And then we'll come and churn in another money. There's no money making machine in the school. And so that puts a huge question mark. How do we address the problem? Because the people who should address it are telling you that it's because of your mismanagement that we can't address these things. So I feel like a lot of attention should be put to it. It should be total overhaul. This is affecting health. A lot of times students think they fell sick because of its exam fever, and there's that, it exists. Probably, I don't know if it's medically proven. I've not seen that, but a lot of students are falling sick because of environment. A lot of people open sewages. I don't want to talk about it. These things are gory sites. They are gory sites. You don't want to see them. If you come across them on the media, you will throw up, right? So these things need attention now. Almost just a month ago, I saw a list of approved federal universities that finances were going to be sent to, where money was going to be sent to. This is not the first time we're seeing it. It's not going to be the last time we're going to see it. The question is, what are these finances actually used for? Because we saw it in Buhari's time, we're seeing it in Tinubu's time. What were these resources used for in the universities where it was sent to? For example, now I know a number of universities that were captured, my school inclusive, and I'm just waiting patiently, hoping that I don't graduate before it happens, because I have to see what those millions are going to be put into. So I believe that it's a problem. It's a hierarchical problem. So there's a problem with the top, in paying attention to education. Effectors, who are the commissioners of education, ministers of education, are they paying real attention to the real issues? Vice chancellors of universities, are they presenting the actual problems for these finances to be put into? And of course, the students themselves, are they willing to manage what will be brought to them?
Okay, just because you talked about finances, let's talk about the grants, or rather the student's loan that was promised. What's the development with that? Have you seen anybody that is benefiting from that student loan currently?
Well, I'll be very, very honest. Yes, I'll be very, very honest. In the Southeast, hardly. At some point, we began to wonder if there was an agenda, because it came to the Southeast. I was part of hosting a conversation with the SA to the President on community engagement, where NEL Fund, that's actually the name.
Yes, NEL Fund.
Educational Loan Fund, right? So NEL Fund was introduced, and till today, there are still students who are saying, I applied, right? So my nickname is Senator D, and they say, Senator D, I applied. I've not seen anything. I applied. My school fees portal is still showing not paid. Right, but you also have them publish list of schools. So you come online and you see list of schools that have used the loan. So
these schools, are they like schools within the Southeast that are there, or just northern schools?
No, northern schools. There was a time they were saying we were not using it. So
but people applied, didn't they?
People did, but not as much as
the northerners.
So we felt it was a scam, government, and it was a loan. So there's
you still have to
paying it back. God, I beg. So, but when we explained, tried to drive it home, some people who really needed it applied. But I've not seen anybody who has said to me, "Oh, Divine, I saw my fees
and they are being paid."
They may be existent somewhere, but I have no record of that.
Interesting. Let's talk about grades. We see students graduate, thousands of students graduate to university every now and then, and you're wondering the quality of education that they get. And what I'm trying to actually dive into is the problem of certain courses, sex for grades, and the number of it.
Yeah, so the quality of education has obviously declined, and again, this is another problem that is on both sides. You can take the horse to the river, you can't force it to drink. There's, as much as there's going to be students who do the sex for grades, there are going to be people who will sort, there are going to be people who will be very diligent. That problem of the quality of graduates we have, I feel like the university system kind of gives you a level ground. So if there is a classmate of yours who is not sorting, who is attending the lectures, doing it the right way, presumably, and coming out with good grades, I feel like everybody can. We don't have the same mental capacity, but in the aspect, I agree that learning conditions are not conducive at all. So you have classrooms that are 200 capacity with students that are about 1,000. It exists. So but in that kind of environment, there are still people coming out with 5.0,
exactly
4.8, 4.9. So I feel like if I take up this conversation and take away a blame from the students, then as essay on student affairs, I'm not doing well. I should encourage people to leave, this shortcut ideology in our generation, where people just want to bypass the difficult process the hard way. It's harder in Nigeria. It's harder. Yes, there's a hard way, but it's way more difficult
in Nigeria.
Trust me. But then there are people who are doing it. There are people who are. If I had a child, I'm not sure I'm going to tell him, this is not. You don't deserve to go through all this stress. Go and sort your course. So if I can't give that advice to my child, then I can't give it to anybody. So myself, I'm reading my books, doing politics, doing business, coming out with grades by God's grace. So I believe that it's something that we can all do. So but there can be a lot of improvement that could be done. There could be more conducive lecture environments. There could be more conducive examination environments. How do you start up a semester and after 1 month you've announced an examinations? And then you've taught 3 courses, but then
there are some lecturers that have not even shown up for their classes
so
yet.
They may have done 2 topics, there's 12 remaining. Go and read it up, and it will come out, because the questions you set are going to be reviewed. Or did you really set a standard exam? If you set 2 topics, it's not a standard exam, so you have to set everything. So this person has to read. So those things should be paid attention to. I understand that strikes could actually cause that rush. We had a lot of that rush in many universities in Enugu State, as a case study. But moving forward, I believe that more time should be given for students to prepare.
Okay, let's talk about students' mental health. You see cases where students commit suicide. Someone wants to drink a poisonous substance, someone wants to jump off the building, someone just wants to end their life. Let's talk about how well are the universities, trying to create an avenue where you could actually pour out whatever you feel. I don't know, like a support group or whatsoever.
Yes, well, I don't think that exists. Well, if it does, Please, anybody here can tell us in the comment section, but I doubt, right? But you know, the mental health issue, I've noticed that it's because of, you know, there is a lot of pressure in our generation. You know, somebody is in university, the person is 19, and the person has the pressure to get a car.
Is the pressure from peer pressure or from the family?
I don't know,
because
but
I don't think your family will send you to school at 19 to get a car.
Exactly my point. So what I'm saying is that if our parents went to school at 19, they were interested in making good grades. So there was no, I'm so down, I don't even have money to buy this, to buy. So now there is hair. So now there is iPhone, there is sub, right? So if we take it away from the mental health challenge that people face because of the cost work, the workload that they have to cover, and we actually bring it to the real things that cause mental health issues in universities, you find out that it's a lot of pressure around what is now available. So there's so many things available, and everybody wants to get a hold of it. Even the person who wasn't born with a silver spoon wants to write the GLE. And when the GLE doesn't come, you know, the person begins to feel depressed. So I believe my advice, whoever is listening to this, is that you see mental health, you're going to determine it by yourself. It's your most immediate environment. So I feel like we can control what happens in our mental health if you put up a positive front, you know, confess to yourself positively, you know, encourage yourself. You wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror. I'm not where I am by choice, right? So a lot is happening around me, but I'll get somewhere tomorrow. So you know, so but aside that, I think what you said should actually be done. There should be a system where students can actually come and pour. But I'm just wondering who will listen. Like, I'm using my school as an example, 15,000 students. So I'm wondering who's going to listen to all of them.
I mean, is that not why we have the guidance and counselors department?
Yeah, that.
But are they really functioning in the universities?
Another question for the people to answer.
Okay, let's talk about students' involvement in politics. How involved are students in political business of Nigeria?
In recent times, very involved. In fact, it's something that has improved. The problem I have, or the problem I'm anticipating, is that they are getting involved for the wrong reasons. But if it's involvement, it has improved. And what do I mean by wrong reasons? The students are also realizing that they should have a dividend from the national cake. And the national cake ideology is what is messing up the political space. So if we are the leaders of tomorrow and we're going into the political space with this same mindset, are we going to really be the saviors of tomorrow, or are we in deep mess? So I feel like there's been more involvement, but I've not seen, you know, on the larger percentage of the involvement, you still see people who are just going there to carry bag, to sing praises, to, you know, pave way for the bigger,
to have godfathers.
And so what is happening is, like, there's an academy that is brooding students that will repeat the past. So I feel like the involvement is good. We are now more politically aware. We are now more politically active. I mean, you have student union government. I'm still a student, and I'm an SA on student affairs to the government. I have a lot of other people doing the same thing. So, but what I feel is that there should be also a reorientation to why we are getting involved with politics. So if we're going to change the narrative, then we can't be getting involved in politics for the same reasons that the past leaders got involved and got us where we are.
Okay, with the rapid technological advancements, do you think the Nigerian universities are ready for it? Do you think that we have the system to manage this?
Currently,
to even incorporate it into our own universities to start with?
Currently, no, but I don't think it's something that I feel is possible. And you know why I think it's possible is that some tech trainings have been launched in Enugu State. You have YAPI, you know, and a lot of others. And these tech trainings have established labs, on-site labs in universities. Yes, so I feel like it's possible. But then you see a training establishing a lab that can take 100 people at a time. Meanwhile, they are expecting to train 10,000. So there's an insufficiency with how prepared we are, but I don't think it's impossible. I feel like if the attention is paid to it and collaborate, you know, when it comes to tech, collaboration is the key word. So I don't think it's a job for only the government to do. A program like Enugu Tech Festival opened the doors for Enugu. If we leverage on what we have, the kind of traction we now have in the tech space, and then involve the universities.
Okay, I'm sure your school is in the urban setting. What are schools in the rural areas?
Well, is it in relation to tech?
Yes.
So the world is global now. So there's nobody in an area. So what you have is that from here, I'm getting feed from what is in the rural area. And from the rural area, they're getting feed of what is in. And when you come to tech, there's nobody that is struggling with location. So if it's tech, that's why I asked you if it's in relation to tech. If it's in relation to tech, then there is no problem with the location of the student. Maybe there may be need for more advocacy from such places so that things can get to them. But if it's about their awareness of what is happening, they are quite aware. I mean, they're the ones on Facebook tweeting every day, commenting.
So what of the sustainability of this advancement? Do you think is something that we can keep up with as time goes on if we eventually introduce it into our system?
If I follow trend of, maintenance problem, I don't think so. But if I want to be positive, I think with the current leader, if I'm going to use Enugu State strictly,
because it's like the main focus of attention right now.
Yes, so if I'm using Enugu State as a point of contact, then yes, I think it's sustainable. If these current goals, we have a goal of reducing the poverty headcount to 0, have a goal of driving the GDP from $4 billion to $30 billion in 8 years. You have all of that, improving education, dedicating 33% of the state's budget to education in Enugu State. So if these goals remain the focal point and are actually being executed, then it's very, very possible. It's going to be a continuum. It's not something that's going to happen in 8 years or 16 years. But if they deviate, if there is a change in what the goal is, if someone comes up and says, oh, my interest now is that markets, we need more markets in Enugu State. Leave education first. We need more markets. That becomes a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about internship in the university. You have people, there's a period of time where students are being sent out to have their internship program, go for trainings, apply to, that's what they call the IT period, where you have about 3 to 6 months where you have your IT. How well do students utilize this opportunity?
This one is also dependent. I'll tell you, I'll just give you a brief example. I know someone who says, oh, during my IT, I was able to get into a place where my dad knows the person who owns it. I never went there. I used it as my break time. I went to learn a skill and I came back, right? So it's a decision, because when it comes to IT, I don't think there's anything like there's no space when it comes to IT, industrial training. And it's also because it's volunteering, so you're not being paid. So nobody is going to tell you, I cannot take 5 staff. So
but what of the experience of this thing? Is it not preached enough to students?
It's preached enough, but the problem is, do they see the necessity? Do they see the need to actually engage? Do they get interesting places? I know someone who did their IT for architecture, which is usually done in 3rd year, and where they were sent to, they literally just sent her to buy Oba every other day. So she became errand girl. So
this is the fault of the organization itself,
not the school.
So is there no avenue where you could actually complain about this, maybe to the higher staff or the management in the organization?
Yes, you can complain. I feel anybody can complain now. You can complain. Right? Yes, so I feel like they complain.
It's left for them to decide what to do.
But I think complaining is not the problem.
Okay, but another angle is times now, students feel like the period for your internship is when they take to go and learn a skill, a skill outside what you're studying. Do you think it's a good idea? I mean, with the way things are in the country.
The question you just asked now is very, very tricky, because it's necessary. What I think we can use to curb that is, like you said, curriculum review. Where is the place of entrepreneurship? There's a course called CEDR in almost every university, and it's mandatory, sort of compulsory for some students. But you just see it's about buying the textbook and writing the exam.
Is it the entrepreneur course?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about buying the textbook and passing the exam. It's not really about the entrepreneurship. So what if we could have 1 year of IT, 6 months learning a skill, 6 months doing your IT? All of it is curriculum review.
Of course,
it's all about reviewing these things, sitting with people and agreeing that this is how it's going to be, working it through and making it happen.
Other than forcing them to do
IT.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about preparedness of workforce. When you're done with your school, you've graduated, everybody's excited about it. Now you're talking about what's the way forward. Are you ready to face the world now? Apart from being in the corporate world itself, there are so many forms of employment. Do you think that with the way the university is and students are they ready for the workforce ahead of them?
I feel like the university, because of the hardship it poses, actually prepares a lot of people with, solution, problem solving abilities. Because you face a lot of problems in university. Trust me, you face problems and you manage them. You find a system that makes all those things that were problems to become opportunities for you. So I feel like the university space that's outside what is being taught in the classroom
Okay.
actually builds, that particular doggedness for the work market. The problem is the experience. So you have the doggedness to appear, before a huge firm in Lagos. But when you're getting interviewed, do you have what it takes to work in that particular law firm? So in that particular firm, really. So if
Whichever
it's
firm it is.
whichever firm it is, really. So do you have the experience to work there? Is university space giving students enough orientation? You're getting into a firm and they're telling you that you should have, what's it called, maybe 5 years experience, of volunteering, and nobody really tells you that. I mean, because I got into the whole business space, I get to do interviews, and I'm noticing that if I'm not doing the things I'm doing now, I may not be relevant, because nobody is interested in your A1
First
first class
class.
anymore. So if I have a business firm where I sell cars, I want to, as I'm interviewing you, I want to check, putting you here, will I sell out my cars? So it's not about getting a first class in business administration. Were you likable when I was speaking to you? So if you're not likable when I'm speaking to you, you can't be likable when my customers are speaking to you, who may be tired, about to make a transaction, which means they're about to lose money, which makes them very uneasy, on edge, irritated easily. So will you be able to make my work sell out, right? So I feel like this is really the experience that gets people into the workforce, being a complete person, not just having the degree. So it's also volunteering, that thing you think you want to do, when you get out there, start doing something related to it now, so that you build some level of experience.
Interesting. It's really amazing to understand that it's not just something that we experience. It's something that every other person has been through. Even our fathers, I'm sure that they had like a level of difficulty in some of these things. Looking forward, the university in the next 5-10 years, where do you see? Do you see this advancement? Do you see this do you see this change that we've all been talking about? We've been preaching about it, not just in the increment. It's fine if you want to increase the fees, but are you really going to implement these things that you're supposed to?
In the next 5 years, so in the past 5 years, so there's a rule. So when someone asks you in the next 5 years, ask yourself in the past 5 years. So in the next 5 years, what's really going to happen is going to be evidenced, because we can't see the future. So I'm going to trust the next 5 years based off the last 5 years. The last 5 years, have we seen any development? No. What it means that for the next 5 years to be promising and positive, we need a miracle. And it's not a miracle that will happen spiritually. It's a miracle of leaders who are intentional about the educational space. It's a miracle of, very, very conscious efforts to review curriculums. It's a miracle of, having the best brains at the forefront, not having people who are inexperienced leading experienced people. So, right, if we have all of that reorientation, then we can talk about having a positive change in the next 5 years, which will be a miracle, So, but looking forward, I'm very, very positive and optimistic. So if you ask me that question, you're asking the wrong person. So I'm always going to say, let's keep hoping, right? So we don't know the future. Tomorrow everything may just be good. So, yeah, so.
Okay, with your experience as the special advisor, Student Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Enugu State, I'm pretty sure you have this sort of relationship with a whole lot of students. I'm sure that there are even people that you would they have certain concerns that are really out of the blues. What are those things that that is not so, how would I put it, something that happens and you're really surprised that this kind of thing is happening? Would you share with us some of your experiences?
Okay, with students, it could get very, very emotional. It could get very, very deep, because I know that there was this time that there was a student who was battling, whose parents or mom, the only surviving parent, was battling with breast cancer, so, or the one whose father was battling with a heart condition. There's the one whose mom was battling with a heart condition, who later died during exam period, right? So these ones will hit you. Then there are some of these people who are actually struggling with addictions. So I've come across a number of students who have said, Senator D, I can't continue. and I know that
I can't continue with school or with the addiction.
With school, right? So I can't continue with school, and I know you're not happy with me. You're going to say you're not happy with me, but I can't stop. Let me say betting.
But why would you pick an addiction over your well-being?
Well,
you want to quit school to focus on addiction. Is that not the case here?
When I did psychiatric posting, I found out that the addiction becomes the well-being. So the addiction is how they navigate life. Okay. That is why there's something called withdrawal syndrome.
Exactly.
So when somebody is trying to come out of an addiction, that has become their way of life. They get by life through the addiction. So it becomes an impossible thought that they can leave the addiction and
face life squarely.
So if it's an addiction that is going to make them to not read well, like maybe someone is addicted to substance abuse, so it's not allowing them to read well, they don't think there's a solution like leaving the substance.
That's true. Just now that we've talked about addiction and consumption of substance by students, what is the school doing about this? You see students, they come to school high. Do you understand? People go for their exams high in quotes. I can't even emphasize how often these things happen. And then you have the school university going on as normal. You see people have these little moments of madness due to the substance that they've consumed. You see these things happening in school, and the school authorities, they don't do anything exactly about it.
Well, the question is, what can they do about, an assumption that this person is high? Because in schools, there is a no smoking policy. For example, my University of Nigeria Nogo campus, you're not allowed to smoke on campus. So if you're seen, you're going to be apprehended. So people smoke in their lodges. So if they're smoking in their lodge, what would the school do about it? Exactly. So what I think you're asking is, now that they've seen these things are happening,
but they're not really doing anything about it.
But I also know, taking my school once again, there was a partnership with NDLEA last year where there was a campaign against substance abuse, in my school, right? So, but the problem is that you've done that campaign last year, new students have come in this year, you've not done the campaign again. So I feel like there needs to be a reoccurrence of some of these things, because people get introduced to most of these things on campus. They don't come in with it
very
a lot
true.
of times.
Very true.
So if we can, as they're coming into it, tell them this, just
avoid telling them, is it enough? Just word of mouth, is it really enough?
It's the most you can do in the university. If it was a secondary school, you can talk about food.
So are there can't we have a raid session in the universities?
Where you raid the lodges?
I don't know.
That would be what's it called? That would be
is it unlawful?
It would be unlawful. I'm trying to think when somebody is overstepping their
boundaries. Exactly.
Yes, so it's going to be a lot. It may be a crime. A student who is very aware of their rights is going to sue you for trespass. Yes. It's
really sad, because these things are one of the things that they are the key contributors to one of the challenges that we face in the universities. It was so amazing having this conversation with you. I could go on and on about it, but our time is far spent. We talked about challenges students in Nigeria tertiary institutions face, and our guest was the Special Advisor, Student Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Enugu State, Honorable Divine EKWEREMADU. It was good to have you on the set today.
Thank you very much.
We'll have this conversation over time. It's something that keeps happening every single day of the week. So I will definitely invite you to have this conversation another day, and we hope that you honor our invitation.
If I'm chanced, why not? I'll be glad to be here.
All right, thank you so much.
Save Nature TV. News in your pocket.